Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And as we do on occasion, we're going to deviate a little bit from talking about hardcore business things. Those are fun, those are great, but as people who have listened to my program know, if there's something not right in your head, your heart, your soul, it's not going to matter how successful your business is, because if you aren't right, nothing else is going to matter. And so we're going to have so much fun today talking with my guest. And so please join me in welcoming Patrick Cummings to our program today. Welcome, Patrick. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. I look forward to it.
Perfect. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you. So Patrick Cummings is an entrepreneur, business coach, wealth management advisor, and published author committed to helping others balance their lives for happier outcomes. He worked in the corporate world for 12 years before deciding, when his children were just toddlers, to start his own business and gain control of his time. He is the author of The Family Business Balancing Act, an entrepreneur's guide to being a family man. He is an active member in his community, and Patrick lives in Washington State with his wife, Brooke. So again, Patrick, welcome.
Thank you. It's a little colder here today than it is in Atlanta.
I know, we were talking about that. You have snow and we have 75 degrees. Now, what we didn't talk about, I'm from Colorado. I miss the snow. I don't want the snow here. But yeah, but gotta love technology that we can be having these conversations and be having them face to face. That's what's so much fun. Well, we talked, I mentioned your book, and your book it tells the story of what you have done throughout your life.
Right.
But I think that it's always good for our listeners to hear a little bit more about your story and how you discovered that what you're doing now truly is your passion in life. So give us some details.
Well, I mean, that whole story is a long story, and that's in the book, as you say, but raised by a single mom. My dad left when I was 5. My brother left when I was 9 to live with my dad. And, I didn't know that we didn't have anything. I was raised pretty poor and started working at a very early age. My dad was part of my life, but only maybe, a day and a half, maybe 2 days every other week.
Mm-hmm.
And even then I was going to work with him.
Right.
And so he only knew what his dad had taught him, and that was, you got to provide for your family and you got to work.
Mm-hmm. Work.
And so I started working at a very early age, worked through college, got into corporate America, got a job that everybody dreamed about. I was a sales rep for an international company and expense account and all that. But life was about the company,
right?
Not about my family.
Mm-hmm.
And on my son's 4th birthday, I realized that I had actually spent one entire year of his life looking through a windshield, traveling to sell product.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to I don't want somebody else raising my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a vision of what I wanted my kids to grow up and be, or to how to act. I shouldn't say to be. But so I changed careers and became the hardest boss a person could have on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, most entrepreneurs listening today are going to agree that, yeah, you got into the business because you wanted to have time freedom and financial freedom. And all
right.
That.
Yeah. Silly us.
Do we give ourselves that time freedom? And I would say most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost cost me my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It almost cost me my son's life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I lost my dad 3 years ago, a lot of reflection. I have 2 offices. I travel. My offices are about 2 hours apart.
Mhm.
And so I drive, and a lot of reflection on that, and a lot of reflection on what is it, what is the really the goal of being in business
Mhm.
or being an entrepreneur,
Right.
and how do you balance it? Everyone's shooting
Mhm.
for the best month ever, the best quarter ever, the best year ever, but yet what does it cost you?
Mhm.
And I would say all of that, there's a cost.
Right.
And I did not want that cost to be the jeopardy of my family. And
Mhm.
my wife and I almost divorced when my kids were 10 and 13. And fortunately, we made it through. We've been married now for 33 years. And I have two awesome kids.
Mhm.
And it's not all about business.
Mhm.
I'm passionate about what I do because I was raised again by a single mom, didn't
Mhm.
have any money, helping people make good choices
Right.
with their money,
Mhm.
and give as little as possible to the government. I mean,
Mhm.
legally, right? But it's developing relationships and helping people
Mhm.
really pursue what's going to make them happy in their life, and it's not all about the almighty dollar.
Right.
Hopefully, that gives you a little perspective
Yeah,
on where
it does. And it's so interesting. And I did read your book, even though it's for the family man. And I'll tell you, I think it's very valuable for both men and women
yeah,
because, especially if there are struggles going on in a marriage, I think so many times it helps us women to sometimes know where they're coming from because men aren't always going to talk to us about that
right,
because they don't often see it as an issue. And so when we look at it from our perspective of, where are we, Mars, Venus, wherever women are, um,
yeah,
we go, oh, and I think, you know, one of the things that we have seen and especially with the generation who are a little bit more mature, let's just put it that way, um especially men, it's as you said, men were supposed to work, they were supposed to work themselves as much as they possibly could because they were doing it to provide for their family.
yeah,
And but the bad part is it's exactly what you were saying. When you get so caught up in doing that, then your family doesn't even know you exist. And I
right,
think that's where we see so many problems arise is, you've got this great successful career, you're bringing in the money, you're doing all of that, and you go home and your kid goes, "Who are you?" you know, or you missed my last soccer game or concert, or your wife is like, nope, nope, I'm doing 100% of this, and yeah, it's great to have the paycheck, but no. um
yeah.
so talk to us more about this because I think this is the big issue is men feel that they have to be that provider, and that is strictly from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people refer to it as kind of the generational sin.
Hmm.
We only learn what we were taught from our parents,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And um, so my dad grew up working in logging
Hmm.
camps. His dad
Hmm.
was a logger. He worked 6 days a week,
Right.
16
Hmm.
hours a day, and that's what he did. And
Hmm.
when he would come home, my grandmother would have dinner on the table
Hmm.
and desserts
Hmm.
made and all of his laundry cleaned. That was an expectation my dad
Hmm.
had. And so when my dad got into athletics and became a coach, it was all about winning, and it
Hmm.
was all
Hmm.
about the support of the local community
Hmm.
because if you didn't have it, you didn't have a job.
Hmm.
And to make more money, he would offer state championships
Hmm.
or different,
Right.
just things that
Hmm.
he would add to his job. And that's how I was grew up, and that was
Hmm.
what I was taught. And so to your point, I would come home and I'm
Hmm.
working my tail off. I'm starting a business from
Hmm.
scratch, and I'm working my tail off. I'm bringing
Hmm.
the money home, and I come home to a fight.
Hmm.
What is going on?
Right.
And why don't you understand how hard I'm working?
Hmm.
And the
what I'm doing for you.
yeah, and what I had to learn was, okay, all I can do is fix me.
Hmm.
I can't fix my wife if I want her to act differently. I can't fix that. We were in the, like so many people, she was raised different than I was raised. And so she disciplined the kids different than I did.
Hmm.
Well, I'd come home sometimes that, you work 6 days a week trying to get this business up and running. and you wanted to sit down and have family time, but it was a conflict.
Right.
Right. And now I come home and I don't even get to relax.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being able
So
to
then
have,
you wanted to work more
I would just be gone.
to not be home. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's not healthy. And that leads to a path where you just grow apart. And like you said, your kids begin to resent who you are. You're coming home and you're going to discipline me and you're never here.
Right.
Um, so working with your partner, and talking about those struggles and how do we go forward? How do we move forward? And we parent, not only do we parent together, but when we are together, we're spending time as a family unit.
Right.
My wife and I go out every week. Thursdays.
I love it. You have date night.
We have
or actually date lunch, right? Is it still lunch?
Every week.
See, I read your book.
Yeah, but this week it doesn't work. And so we went out to dinner last night.
Okay.
And, so we went out to it's kind of a sports bar, taco bar place, lots of snow. So it wasn't real busy. But I was looking around the restaurant and I mentioned to my wife, I said, look at these young couples that are here. All they're doing is they're staring at their phone.
Right.
They're taking pictures of their dinner. They're not even having a conversation. And we made a point of it with our kids and ourselves. No social media, no phone at the table. We go out to dinner, it's left in the car. And when you first start doing that, there's an argument, right?
Right. Oh, the world is going to come to an end and I won't know.
Yeah, but the dads I see so often, you go to a sporting event or you go someplace, they're checking emails.
Right.
Or why are we doing that when we say our family's the most important thing, but yet we don't treat them that way?
Right.
And that's my point of, you're gonna have to work hard, right? But we all can be more efficient, quite honestly. But setting realistic goals of a measure of success is not, I got to beat everybody in the office, because your family does not care. Your children do not care how much money you make. And so, that is one of the biggest challenges, is how do you communicate that to your spouse? And then if your spouse is working, maybe they're getting a paycheck consistently. You just have to communicate about all that, and expectations. Maybe if you want me home more often, that's okay, but there's going to be
we
less.
might not have the grand vacation.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, the corporate world, or even if you own your own business, the goal is to make as much money as possible, right? That you can do everything else as long as you've got as much money. And so that when you talk about boundaries and the fact that you worked in corporate America, and I got out of corporate America 20 years ago, partially for the same reasons you did. It was like, oh, yuck. But the expectations that are put on you there, and I love some of the stories that you've got in your book. And just yesterday, now we're taping this a little bit before it actually airs, but there was a picture of one of the Twitter executives sleeping on the floor of her office in a sleeping bag, and she had a little mask over her eyes, so that it could be dark, sleeping there to show Elon Musk how committed she was. And I'm thinking, oh no, now, there have been times where you do have to put in those really long hours, depending on what you do. And you were just talking about snow. You might actually get snowed into your office, or things like that. But it's when if you have to sleep on the floor of your office to prove that you're committed to your job, no, there's really not. And I don't care if you have a family, if you have a dog, a cat, if you're totally single and on your own, that is not a good job. And that's what's worse is that is not a good corporate environment. Do you really want to be in that?
No, absolutely. And, if you look at that kind of a person who's living that way in their work, worker happiness, worker productivity, worker satisfaction, it's gonna play into what you do. It's gonna come out, right? And then
Right.
if you're in a business, I know nothing about Twitter and social media running that business, but in our business, where we're client facing a lot, we're dealing with people's money, we're dealing with
Right. And
and
sometimes they need attention at Sunday evening at 10 p.m.
yeah, but if people are unhappy, that is going to play over,
Right.
right? In my career, other than retirement or having to let somebody go for strange reasons, I've never had anybody leave because of the way we treat them here. It's
Wow.
I pursue family time. I value family time,
Right.
and I want my team, my entire team.
Yes. Yes. That is what's so critical because you value it. They get to value it also.
Exactly. And everybody pulls the rope, right? And when you help people like understand what their unique ability is, and that's part of what I really strive to do is help people figure out what is your unique ability. And everybody has weakness, right? So why do we talk badly about weakness? Because everybody's got them. And
Right. It's okay. Men can cry.
yeah, but I look at these things of saying that I'm gonna do more of what I am really good at, and I'm gonna find somebody who's really good at the stuff that I'm not good at because that's who they are. And if you can build a culture around that, and you can build an office structure around that, it is really successful and it's a lot of fun. Doesn't mean there's times that people have to go outside the comfort zone, right? But if you can create that culture, I do not want my team sleeping under their desk or, if they're spending too much time here, I demand that they have to leave, right? You have to go take some vacation. What you're telling me is I need to find somebody else to add to the team. So yeah, that culture is really important. I don't understand it.
Right. Yeah, and it's a 24/7 business, just because people around the world are using it. But that's where you have to have hired well,
right?
So that somebody's not now, obviously every once in a while, as we said, there are exceptions, but yeah, if you hire well, you as the owner know I can go home and things will be taken care of. If it is a true emergency, maybe they do need to reach me. And all of that. I mean, and employees have to know that they're empowered also to make those decisions. So they're not calling you while you're having dinner with your wife, and things like that. And it's all about that culture. And as you said, it's that family-centered culture. And then what happens is that the extension of the family are your employees.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you say, when they know that, and they know that if they make a mistake with me, if they make a mistake, it can cost us money, right?
Right. It can cost a lot of money.
But we all make mistakes. And my team knows that if they do something wrong, and I know it's not malicious, they're not going to lose their job. They're not going to get punished for making a simple mistake. If they continue to make the same mistake over and over again, that's a problem. But
yeah, and maybe then you have to solve that problem.
But they know they can come to me immediately and say, hey, I screwed up with this or that, or what should we do? And, to your other point, if I'm not here, if I'm in meetings or if I'm on this podcast with you and something happens, my question to them, and this comes from Dan Sullivan's strategic coach organization, is, okay, if you couldn't get a hold of me, what would you do?
Right.
And have the discussion before. Right? What are you going to do if you can't get a hold of me? And if they answer and it's not something that you would think is appropriate, say, well, what else would you do? Until they say, well, I would do X. Perfect.
Right.
That's what I want you to do. And it's fun to see in them. It gives them the freedom of knowing that, I'm not a top-down boss. It's our team. And it's just fun to see people working in that environment that they feel safe, right? They feel safe and they feel appreciated.
Right. You mentioned a keyword, appreciated. That's the other thing, safe, appreciated, and respected. And is it a trickier hiring process? Sure. Because it's not the, 10-minute interview.
Right.
type
Right.
of thing. And, but you need to make sure that they are truly going to be a good fit.
Yeah. And, we just added a young man to our team here about a month ago. And the biggest concern of the team was,
Hmm.
will this person fit in our
Hmm.
culture?
Right.
Not about what do they
Hmm.
know? Are they a hard
Hmm.
worker? Will they fit in our
Hmm.
culture? And I have told my team that we will know in
Hmm.
less than 60 days if
Hmm.
they're going to fit,
Right.
right? If they don't, we'll
Hmm.
find somebody else. But
Hmm.
we spend a lot of time on the process prior to making an
Hmm.
offer. And there's a lot of tools out there,
Hmm.
Culture Index, Colby, the Print, all the
Hmm.
different things that are out there that you can use. And if you look at that along with everybody else on your team,
Hmm.
uh, there's some magic that can happen.
Right. Right. And those conversations and things are, how you get to know so much. I remember, and I tell people this all the time when I work with them when they're in the job market. You never know who's actually interviewing you. So be nice to that person at the front desk.
Right.
And do your research in advance. Even if it's just simple things like, everybody in the office wears jeans. And we've all been told no jeans for job interviews, right? So, maybe you're not going to wear jeans for the job interview, but you're not going to wear the suit and tie and all of those things because you want them to know you can fit into that culture.
Right.
And I always find it interesting, like I've talked to people who have said, they put me into the fishbowl room, right? So it was a conference room that had all windows and then just left me there for a while. And what they were doing was they were watching to see what you were going to do. Were you sitting there playing on your phone? All of those various things. And sometimes they, I talked to one person, they said, yeah, they had their annual reports there. So I picked them up and I read them. And I went, oh, ding, ding. So
Right.
instead of, playing solitaire, checking email, he learned more about the company.
Right.
And
That's
and
right.
so yeah, that fitting into that culture is just so important. And and that boss obviously sets that culture from the top, exactly what you were saying.
Yep.
And it is hard, back to being the male that is, I mean, we go all the way back to caveman time. Women stayed in the cave and and the guys went out and killed the whatevers and drug them home, and fought the wars and all of those things. And of course, ego gets pretty tied into that. And I think one of the biggest examples we have seen of one of the biggest, things that has happened with a marriage is Tom Brady and Giselle. And I never say her name right, so
Right. Right.
and and from the outside, we all went, "Oh my gosh, they have it all."
Right.
She is this model. He is the goat. I mean, and I come from the land of John Elway and and
Yeah.
Peyton Manning. Um, and they've got these beautiful children, all this home, everything you could want, and it didn't last.
Right.
And I think a big part of that was, part of it was his ego. He
Mhm.
really did I can play more. I can, I am the goat. I can play more. And I remember one of the headlines where, right after it happened, Giselle's comment was, I just wanted him home.
Right. Yeah. And, we have to think about that.
Mhm.
And what this is tough for me to kind of talk about because I lived through,
Right.
not, not to
Yeah,
that
you're
extent,
like you were
but
saying, your dad was he
my
was
dad was,
he was a coach, he was an athletic director. So that
yeah,
same mindset. I mean, and
same
sports
mindset
people do
is,
have a different mindset.
and it's this performance
Hmm.
in one of the things that I think that would love to ask Tom Brady or, any of these people, I ask it all the time to the young folks in our office is, what type of human being
Mhm.
do you want to raise?
Right. Yeah.
Because you are setting the standard of your
Hmm.
child
Hmm.
that's going to have to
Hmm.
perform at the very top tier.
Right.
And maybe they don't want to. Maybe
Hmm.
they want to be a custodian or a school
Hmm.
teacher or a
Right.
framer or maybe they want to have, an art studio. Nothing against any of that.
Right.
It's what makes them unique. But if you teach them that it's only about that level of success, what are we raising?
Right.
I'm so proud of my kids, and it's people used to criticize us because we'd make them work and they'd have jobs and this and that. And my daughter's 23 in veterinary medical school. She wants to be an orthopedic surgeon. Our son, you read about in the book about my son's auditory processing disorder and how that affected his schooling, and we didn't know it until ninth grade. But helping groom him into somebody with good work ethic that treats people with respect, and now he's at the top of the charts as far as a mechanic in the racing industry.
Wow.
But he understands the value of the time that he and I were able to spend together, and my daughter. And I think sometimes we focus on, in corporate America especially, the award for, hey, top salesman of the year, top person of the year, and you did it again, and you did it again, and you did it again.
I got the good parking spot.
And you've been divorced 3 times. It's tragic that we set these things as we don't think about what is success really. And again, it goes back to that generational sin. So what is Tom Brady's, what are his kids going to think of success?
Right.
Not everybody is going to be Tom Brady.
Right. And they were worth $700 and some million between the two of them. Their great grandkids they've got more money than their great grandkids can spend, right? So there was definitely not that drive of, I have to get more money. Right. Now I think that was a little bit in there, but yeah, he did not have to continue working for financial gain. No. And I think that is the problem for, of course, many average, non-football great people. Normal is maybe the word I should say, who do have to keep working. They sometimes have to work those horrible hours because they want that financial success. But one of the things that you mentioned, and you talk about this in the book, is what are your priorities? Okay, maybe you're not going on the vacation to Disney World, but you're going to take your family to the park every week. What are they going to remember? And you mentioned this in your book, how we look back at when we were kids, and what type of memories are we going to have of our parents? And I think that's probably the greatest tragedy of all, is so many times we look back and they're not good memories.
That's right. And my business partner, Kyle, he and I were talking about it because obviously he read the book, and he talks about the same thing and how he was raised. And so I try and mentor him to say, okay, what experience do you want your kids to have? And, I have a lot of regrets. We've all made mistakes. I wish I could go back and do a lot of things different. And listening to my dad at the end of his life, what he regretted and what he wished he would do. You can't go back. None of us can go backwards. And so, looking through the eyes of a child, they don't care how much is in your checking account. They don't care how many rooms you got. They care about how much you care about them. And so, yeah, we could talk about that all day. And the other part of it is a really successful person. You have a very successful couple or somebody in business that their child gets pretty much anything they want. And let's say they're not even a spoiled, rotten kid. They just lived a pretty I don't want to say blessed life, because that's money's not the blessing. They didn't go without.
Right. They didn't have to worry about when were they going to get lunch. Now where are they going to get lunch?
Yeah, but now they go into a relationship with that individual who maybe is a mechanic like my son, or is a carpenter or a school teacher, and they don't have lots of wealth. What expectation are we setting in that relationship? And so I think it's so important to think about what are those priorities? What do you want to have it look like? what kind of a human being do you want to
Mhm.
raise? I
Right.
think it's really important.
Right. I'm a college basketball fan. I'm getting ready to kick back up into things, and so it's going to be fun. But several weeks ago, there was the story about, it was a University of Kentucky game, and it was just, preseason, and I think it was an inter squad type of thing. So they weren't even playing anybody else. And this went viral. And you had the coal miner who came and sat with his son, and they were in the front
Yeah,
row, right? Of course, they were
yeah,
in the front row. And there's
right.
his kid, three-ish, I'm thinking, and that man clearly came straight from work. To
Yeah,
say he was grubby and dirty was
right,
an understatement.
right,
I'm guessing the people around him kind of went, "Oh, wow, yeah, okay." Um, but that game was so important to his son
right,
that he knew he couldn't miss it.
right.
And I love it. And I'm thinking, you know what, if I had been there and figured that out, I was gonna buy that man a beer. And but of course the coach, Calipari, people love him, people hate him. He's kind of one of those type of coaches. His staff pointed this out to him. And now these folks are going to be treated like VIPs the every game they go to. And but what I loved was it was showing not just his son, but everybody. You know what? Being with my son was the most important thing in the world. Maybe I
Yeah,
smelled, maybe I was dirty, you know.
he was dirty.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, even
Yeah,
taking half hour to clean up. Nope, nope. He was going to go be with his son.
yeah,
And I think that is such an incredible lesson for everybody. It's exactly what you've been saying.
yeah,
That's and now granted, the kid's gonna have, because of the world we're in, he'll be able to see that forever. But yeah, those memories that our children have of us, are they of, dad came home from work and he was grubby, mom did this, all these things, what, and or were they there, or even if they were there, were they focused on us,
yeah,
were they in the stands, you talk about this in the book, the dads are there but they're watching the game, but they're not really watching the game because they're checking their email, all of these various things, but it's be there and be there. I mean, that's the
be
important
present.
thing.
Be present.
Mhm.
Yeah. My son, he hated horses, scared of horses. My daughter loves horses.
Right. Hmm.
I think all girls, when they're little, like horses, but
Hmm.
he was into anything with wheels and a motor. And so we
Hmm.
would buy engines that weren't working and we'd tear them apart. I have a degree in economics. I am not a mechanic.
No, no, that was not, you didn't know a crescent wrench from
No, and he, mom, dad's bleeding again. But being present and doing that,
right. You
then
were
his
his
friends,
assistant.
yeah, and then his
Hmm.
friends would come to our house
Hmm.
and to work on stuff.
Hmm.
And I wanted to be that guy. I
Hmm.
wanted the kids to want to come to our
Hmm.
house.
Right.
Number one, I want to know where my kids were. But
Hmm.
it's so important to be present, and
Hmm.
you can't always.
Hmm.
But if you tell them, I'm
Hmm.
going to be there,
Hmm.
and you don't show up,
Hmm.
or you show up and you're sitting on your phone,
Right.
shame on you.
Hmm.
I
Right.
remember playing little league baseball, looking up into the bleachers and seeing my uncle Bill
Hmm.
be there and not my dad.
Hmm.
And it wasn't all the time, but it was
Hmm.
frequently. And it just was heart-wrenching at the time. And
Hmm.
and as a kid, you don't think about it. You just think,
Hmm.
oh, my dad's not here.
Right.
But later on, you just don't want to set
Hmm.
that precedence with your
Right.
family.
Right.
You can't.
Well,
You may not
and
be able to
kids
be.
compare. Your dad might not have been there, but you looked around and you counted how many other dads were there.
Right.
And it's, yeah, people like to think, oh, the kids don't notice. Oh, they do, kind of like they keep score too. We might think, oh, we're not going to keep score. No, they know how many goals they scored.
Exactly. The one thing I talked about a bit was the fact that I missed my son's very first Christmas program, and it was because of the corporate world.
Mhm.
My supervisor did not care
Mhm.
that it was my son's very first Christmas program, And I had to be at a meeting and I missed that Christmas program.
Mhm.
You're never going to get that back.
Right.
And, as a business owner,
Hmm.
if one of my team says, hey, my son or my daughter
Hmm.
has this big thing going on, or my spouse has this
Hmm.
big thing going on, well, let's get it,
Hmm.
let's get everything done that we need to get done
Yep.
and get you there.
Hmm.
And I value that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I've heard people say, well, they're going to take advantage. Okay, that comes back to that hiring process. You've hired the people who aren't going to take advantage. Because we've all, especially if we've been in corporate America, we've all had the people whose grandma died 20 times, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just didn't trust them to do anything.
They're not your
And
fit.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, if you've hired good people, when
Mhm.
they say, you know what, my wife's sick, I need to work from home today, you
Mhm.
know that the wife is sick and they need to work from home. It's
Yeah.
not, I need a doctor's note or anything like that. It's no, okay, what do we need to do? Is your
Right.
Wi-Fi working right? What do we need to do? Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And once you treat them that way and they know that,
Mhm.
and they'll do everything for you.
Right. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then they, we talked about you make it like a family because then they help everybody else out.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, we know Patrick needs to leave early to go to this, and so I'm going to do his project for the day because
Yep.
they know that the next time that they're going to help you. And so, it's just it is that culture of what do we want to build and how do we want it to be successful?
Yep. I want people to be happier. So,
Hmm. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And let's be honest, it might mean that you're not making as much money as a company as you could.
Mhm.
But like you said, people stay with you forever. You know?
Yeah, and in my book, I talk about progress, not perfection, and that's
Mhm.
the business that I've created on the side is PNP Strategies. Progress, not perfection. Is
Mhm.
if you think you have to be perfect,
Mhm.
right? Or Dan Sullivan, again, strategic coach, talks about the gap. If your view is the horizon and that's
Mhm.
your goal is getting to the horizon or the
Mhm.
top tier, you're never going to be happy.
Right. You're
Somebody
never
keeps
going to be
keep
perfect.
right. You're never going to be perfect.
Mhm.
And um, what's funny is my wife is a perfectionist.
Mhm.
How she married me, I don't know, or why she married me, I don't know. But that's kind of instilled a little bit in my daughter. And
Mhm.
a B was failure
Mhm.
to them. And I said, my God, I'm a horrible dad and I'm a horrible husband. I don't know why you ever married me. And they said, why do you say that? And I
Mhm.
said, because I'm a B,
Mhm. And they
right?
say, no, you're not.
They say, no, you're not. Like, yeah, I am. I
Mhm.
got a 3.1 GPA from college
Mhm.
before, and,
That's
you
a
know,
B.
it wasn't to me to be the top in my
Mhm.
class. And I am all about relationships.
Mhm.
I want to build relationships. I love relationships
Mhm.
with people, clients, friends, whatever. But I don't have to have that A plus
Mhm.
plus rating
Right.
in the class
Mhm.
to have those kinds of
Right.
relationships.
Right.
And it's fun. They don't appreciate it anymore when I say that to them. But sometimes I tell people we meet that my wife married a failure and to just joke about it. But
Mhm.
to her, a B was failure. And if
Mhm.
that's somebody's mindset in business, to me, I need to pay all my team,
Mhm.
right? My team needs to be here. I need to be
Yeah.
able to pay rent. I need to be
Mhm.
able to pay all the bills.
Obviously, you want to make money for your clients.
Make money for our
Mhm.
clients, absolutely. Because if we don't have them, we don't have anything.
No, there is no business. Hmm.
But how much is enough
Hmm.
at home?
Right.
And if you make a lot of extra, maybe you just need to give it away,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah. And I love hearing the stories about, and especially when they're like the bazillionaires giving money away. But it can always, it starts small. We have some friends and their kids are now in their 20s and they were, 6, 8 years old when they started doing things to earn money. And one of the things that they were always taught was X percent gets saved, X
Mhm.
percent gets tithed.
Mhm.
and whether you're giving to a church, a nonprofit, and it might be time also, okay, you're going to volunteer once a week, all these various things. And, and because I think the giving back is also so important. And I think that's one of the things that I look back with my upbringing. And that was something that my mom especially said, you're going to volunteer, you're going to do this. You're,
Mhm.
and that's still just ingrained in me. It's sometimes you end up being a full-time volunteer, but
Yeah.
it's, it is, how can you give back? And I think we've, the millennials, that really isn't ingrained in them. They are that generation where they want to give back, and which I think is fabulous.
Yeah. One of the one of the fondest memories of early Christmas with my kids was a year that I was involved in an organization in the town that we were living in at the time, the Optimist Club, and we were giving Christmas gifts to underprivileged families and trees and things like that. And I remember taking my little girl and my son, um, and going to these houses to deliver food and presents, and my kids coming out saying they didn't have a Christmas tree.
Hmm.
So we went and got him a Christmas tree, and
Hmm.
we bought him a bunch of presents and brought to the family.
Right.
Um, and my kids recognized that for a long
Hmm.
time. That was pretty awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And again, that's a memory that they still have.
Yep.
And so yeah, it wasn't that you were saying, look, we have the 10-foot high tree that has so many presents under it we can't get near it. It
Right.
was, let's, even if you're buying them a Charlie Brown tree,
Yeah. Matter.
something that you're doing.
Yeah. 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 Giving back is
Mhm.
pretty important.
Right.
Yeah.
And time, that's we actually volunteered over the weekend for an event through my husband's company, but it was for veterans. Always, a soft spot in my heart. My father was a World War II veteran, and just incredibly proud of that. And you know, I didn't really, they had things so well organized. We didn't have a ton of stuff to do. So I listened. You know, hey, thank you, sir. I see on your hat that you were in Korea. And that was all you had to say. Right. And it was just so much fun to sit there and listen to them. And these were veterans who in a lot of ways were down on their luck.
Yeah.
We had extra food that we were giving them, knowing that that was probably their meals for the next couple of days, and things
Right.
like that. And but
Right.
yeah, just to listen to their stories, that was what they wanted.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that we can never take for granted, is just giving a little bit of our time. How much of a difference is it going to make for somebody?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the cool thing is when you have companies that do that. I always love hearing the stories about companies who have that philanthropic,
Mhm.
but that comes back, the whole thing, culture, is, because if it's important to your family, then it's going to be important in your business, and you give back that way. And so it's always great to hear the stories about companies that do things like that.
Yeah. We are my team. We we adopt a couple of families every year, and single moms are a soft spot in my heart,
Mhm.
because I was raised by a single
Right.
mom.
Hmm.
So we go to the areas of our community that
Hmm.
have the less privileged
Hmm.
schools, the
Hmm.
lower income areas,
Hmm.
and find some families. And I don't expect my team to spend their money
Right.
to
Hmm.
buy the presents.
They have their priorities. Hmm.
Wrapping, right? I'm
Hmm.
terrible at wrapping. So the company will buy all the gifts
Hmm.
and all the things, and then as a team,
Hmm.
we wrap them and we do all the
Hmm.
things, and we put notes inside, because they'll tell us it's a 7-year-old little girl or
Hmm.
whatever, and it's so much fun to
Hmm.
be able to go provide that.
Hmm.
In the usually the school counselor says, do you want the family to know? And
Hmm.
no, it's Santa Claus, right?
Hmm. Right.
uh, it's so much fun.
Hmm.
And this time of the year, it's coming up on us, but
Hmm.
being able to do that and giving back
Hmm.
is pretty awesome. And you don't
Right.
do it to try and get more business in.
Yeah.
You do it because you've been blessed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it is, you give them $1.
Hmm.
And to be honest, sometimes that makes somebody's dinner. And
Yeah.
so it's never, oh my gosh, I don't have enough. to give them. It's what can I give?
Right.
And so, but yeah, and it's that word that we've mentioned several times is priorities, and I think as business owners, it is tricky when we are trying to do everything. And it was funny, you mentioned it at the start. Everybody goes into business because they think, wow, I'm gonna have the freedom to do what I want. And we realize, no, we now
Yeah.
just signed on for 28-hour days, right?
Right.
And it is hard, but it's, I learned, I started my business 20 years ago. And one of the things I learned was boundaries, but boundaries for my clients. Now, and obviously it's different for every business, but I told them, and I provide marketing and public relations, not earth-shattering into the world type of things, and I told them, I said, I have office hours. They are
Mhm.
8 till 5. And I said, and if you need me evenings, weekends, holidays, if it is an emergency, here's how you reach me, but no, it will cost you double. And that almost always made them go, oh, it can wait.
Yeah.
And things have changed. I mean, I'm in one time zone, they're in another, and so you have to be flexible. But I also learned I'm not going to respond to their emails at 10 o'clock at night, because
Right.
then the next time they expect that I will respond at 10 o'clock at night. And
Yeah.
in your book, you talk about, we have our VIP clients, and why in the heck are we not treating our families like they're VIPs? Because they really are our VIPs.
Mhm, mhm. And that's to my point of, would you walk into a meeting to go do marketing presentation or something to a potential client or an existing client
Mhm.
with your phone and answer text messages and answer
Right.
calls when it comes in? And the answer to that is no one would
Mhm.
do that.
Right.
So why do we do it to our family?
Mhm.
And I talk about the fact that not only do we not treat them as a VIP, we
Mhm.
need to. And I had a guy tell me he was offended that I wrote in my book, my family's my most important client, and it was the shock factor of why I
Mhm.
said it.
Right.
They're not clients,
Mhm.
but why are we not treating
Right.
them
Mhm.
better than we treat
Mhm.
our? But the other part of it is, I used to make my kids breakfast and take them to school every morning
Mhm.
before
Oh,
I.
I love that part of your book. That was the
And
most important thing for you, was you made them breakfast.
And the person who was in charge of the investment region that I was working in just drove him crazy that
Mhm.
I wasn't in the office when the markets
Mhm.
opened. And I finally, as in my book, I just said, fire me.
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
make my
I'm
kids.
getting my job done. So what is your problem?
Yeah, I'm gonna make my kids breakfast and take them to school every morning. Okay, that's one thing, but
Mhm.
are you on the phone the whole time?
Right. Mhm.
And how many people today, I it's only a 20-minute commute for me to get to work, but
Mhm.
so often I see mom or dad in the front on the
Mhm.
phone and the kid watching videos in the
Mhm.
car.
Right. That is not quality time.
It's not. And
Mhm.
and people say, well, yeah, I get, 20 minutes with my kid in the morning.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Mhm.
have a conversation. Talk to them
Right.
about why
And
buses
it
are getting.
doesn't matter if they're 3 or 13 or 23.
No, it doesn't. And so treating them, and so often I think we miss that. We don't even think about it. You talk about it, we're talking about it now, and people are going to go, oh, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But why didn't we think about that?
Right. Right.
And treating them with that level of respect. Or if
Mhm.
you tell them I'm going to be there and then say, oh, a really important client called, I got
Mhm.
to take this meeting,
Mhm.
so I'm not as important.
Right. Mhm.
Message are you giving?
Mhm. Right. And unfortunately, what we see is when things go wrong, so many times when you talk to the parent, and whether it's, there's obviously degrees of wrong, their grades fail, there's drugs, there's
Mm-hmm.
huge catastrophes. I mean, I'm from Colorado, and
Yep.
Columbine will
Right.
always be something that and but like I said, maybe they got C's when they used to get A's, all of these various things.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times the parents say, I had no idea.
Right.
And I'm that always perplexes me, because I'm like, why the hell not? You know? And a big part of it is, yeah, we were so busy giving them the life that they deserved, that we didn't give them the life that they deserved.
Right. And how many times do people there's stages of life when people get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Right? One of those stages is all of a sudden the kids have gone away to
Right.
college,
Who is this person?
and now, I don't know who you are, and I don't like you anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't see that coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this little degrees of separation.
Right. You
And
realize, when was the last time we sat down and had dinner together?
my wife and I this week,
Mm-hmm.
or actually last week,
Mm-hmm.
it was last Thursday, trying to figure out what day it is, but last Thursday, something was going on. I
Mm-hmm.
said, we've been married for 33 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at our lunch, and I
Mm-hmm.
said, I know something's up, and I screw up all the time.
What'd I do?
What did I do? Is there
Mm-hmm.
something wrong? We need to communicate about
Mm-hmm.
this, because our weekly get together is kind of a reset. We need to
Mm-hmm.
reset, make
Right.
sure that there's not
Mm-hmm.
something. And to me, I'm busy. I didn't think about it. My wife lost her brother at the age of 44. He had a
Mm-hmm.
massive heart attack, and his birthday was yesterday. So she was
Ah.
thinking of
Mm-hmm.
him.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I knew something was going on. There's
Mm-hmm.
something wrong.
Right.
If you're not checking in
Mm-hmm.
on a frequent
Mm-hmm.
basis, you're not going to know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If you come home and your kids are in
Mm-hmm.
their bedroom and they're just doing their
Mm-hmm.
homework, you think, and they come out for 15 minutes and say,
Mm-hmm.
good night, love you. And
Right.
what has been
What are
going on?
they doing on that computer that whole time? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you need to be checking in. And shame on our corporate world for not putting more focus back on
Mm-hmm.
that. And that's one of the things that I'm striving to do, and one of the reasons I wrote the book is I know, well, I already have.
Mm-hmm.
I know that my book will save a marriage and will save a kid's life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already received letters about that.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's more valuable than, I could have spent a lot more time working than
Right.
writing that book. I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you that. But that's what I hope,
Mm-hmm.
comes of it. So,
Right. And the key is to recognize it and then work to fix it. It's still
yep,
not going to be perfect,
right.
as you were saying. But if you're thinking, okay, I missed my kids' last 4 basketball games, I
Mm-hmm.
darn well am going to make sure I'm there for the next 4, or
Yeah,
maybe the next one.
right.
It's because some of it is setting realistic goals. If you say I'm never going to miss a game again, well, that's not going to happen. you know,
Not really.
and so then everybody gets upset. But if you say, I'm going to make it to the next game, then it's easier. Okay, now I'm going to make it to the next game. And oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it to the next one. But if you're honest and you say, here's why, but
Right.
I'm going to make it to the next one, or we're going to do something different. We missed our time together. So what can we do? Things like that. And I mean, it comes down to that little thing called communication, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
somebody's upset, well, I tell my husband, I'm sorry, I can't read your mind. And I know he thinks that about me all the time, and especially when he's like, I have no idea what I've done wrong, and some of it is, some little thing. Well, yeah, I can't expect him to read my mind. So if I'm not happy, I should say, same with people you're working with your clients, all of those things. If they're not paying their bills on time, then they need to know this is
Right.
not acceptable.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah. It comes down to what you said. It comes down to communication
mhm,
and set realistic expectations,
mhm,
because it's unmet, or it's expectations that are set so high that you can't achieve them, is just setting yourself up for
mhm.
disappointment. So set yourself up for success.
Right.
And that success goes to, if you tell them you're going to be there,
Mhm.
you best be there.
Right. And if
Because,
not, you need to tell them why.
right, right. But I think if you're going to say, I'm going to be there, and you don't,
Mhm,
I'm going to
mhm,
be there and you don't, it's just unmet promises. And, they're not going to have confidence in you in the
right.
future.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the next time you say, I'm going to be there, they're like, yeah, right. Mhm.
Mhm. Yep. We'll see.
And yeah, yeah. And it's exactly what you said, who are we raising? What are we raising them to be?
Yep.
And if we're showing them a good example that's not perfect, that's better than showing them no example at all.
Yeah. Yeah. But expecting perfection,
Mhm.
this is where we got into issues with my son, is expecting that high level. And we didn't even know he had a hearing deficit.
Right. Yeah, because you tested for it and they all said no. And so you went, well, he's just not paying attention, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's important to stay connected.
Right. Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, Patrick, we could go on forever. And this is why I set a timer, because this is so interesting. But tell people a little bit more about what you do and what are the services that you provide.
Sure. So, I am a business owner. I own a wealth management company with my business partner in Spokane, Washington, where we help people pay, low amount of tax as possible. It's
Mm-hmm.
not illegal, but also help them figure out how they're going to manage their money in their
Mm-hmm.
retirement. But the other thing I do is I have the business PNP Strategies.
Mm-hmm.
PNP stands for Progress Not Perfection
Mm-hmm.
Strategies. At outlook.com if somebody
Mm-hmm.
wants to email me, or pnpstrategies.com. They can go to the website. And, I do one-on-one coaching. I prefer to talk to groups. I love speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I love to get out and talk in corporations or groups of individuals who are just trying to be a little bit better. I love doing that. I have an airplane and I try and fly the different places that, it's part of the reasons why I bought the airplane. But to be able to go to places and to talk about this and make it known that, number one, they're not alone. Anybody that's feeling uncomfortable right now with this conversation probably needs to read my book.
Right. Yeah, because they're thinking, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And male or female, right?
Male or female. And yes, I got the front cover wrong about, being a family man, but
from a marketing standpoint, you got to get your niche.
you got to get your niche. But reading the book, I think, is important for those people who this has made a little uncomfortable. But I will tell you, I got to where I am through a lot of mistakes. And I made mistakes. You make progress to get better. That's all we can do, is get a little bit better.
Right.
And so helping people understand that they're not alone. There are people out there, and it's okay, for men to share their emotions, and far be it from what my dad said, right? But so pnpstrategies.com is the website. We post videos on there every week about just different sections in the book. There is information there about speaking and how to connect with me. So
perfect. I love it. And we'll have the link to the book in the show notes, so that people can find that. This is something that it needs to be an ongoing conversation, because clearly, I'm sure that Ugg the caveman had problems like this, right? And it will continue far into the future. But anything we can do to help make it better, I think, this is something that we need to just continue this conversation. So I'd love to talk with you again, and to do that. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
the thought that came to mind just right as we're ending up is I would ask people to not shut this video off and then get right back into the routine of what they typically do and say, all that was great information. I would ask that people would write something down and make a note. I used to put a note on my garage door opener, pray before entering, because it was a fight when I got home, and I had to have that reminder. At the end of the day, if we have a successful relationship, and if we raise good quality human beings as children and grandchildren, there's no greater success. And so if you're placing the success of your business at the very top of the chart, I would ask you to reflect on that, because, I almost got married. I almost got divorced. My wife and I have stayed married. That would have been very damaging to the future generations of my family. And so that's it. I would ask people to just write down something that they got from today, or go back and re-listen to it, and work on just making progress. Just make some progress.
Oh my gosh, I love it. This has been so much fun. And, I as I said, I can't wait to do it again. But until then, I'm Deb Creer. I've been talking with Patrick Cummings. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.